I'm going to do this one in English as well, and this will be a demonstration of the Clinical Knowledge Manager. The Clinical Knowledge Manager is an internet-based tool that works both as a library of the archetypes and templates that people put up there, and also as a tool for administering review rounds and the versioning of archetypes and templates, and publication also of the same. This particular instance of this Clinical Knowledge Manager is owned by the openEHR Foundation. There are several other ones around the world, one in Norway, two in the UK, one in Brazil, Slovenia and Australia are the ones that come to mind just now. The main focus in this tool right now is on archetypes, but it can be used just as well to govern templates if you would like to do that. Archetypes can be uploaded as drafts, and they can be taken through the review process and changed and modified until you gain a consensus of the content of the archetype, and then it can be published. I'll start to look through some of the features of the Clinical Knowledge Manager that you can use while not being logged in. And this is the tree of the different archetypes that are in here. As you can see, some of the classes of archetypes that Heather mentioned earlier today are top levels here, the clusters, the compositions, the entries, which are actions, evaluation, observations, instructions, and admin entries, and also the sections, which are these contentless headings. There are also some demographic archetypes that we won't be focusing too much on those, but they can be used to represent the patient information side of the electronic health record. So let's have a look at one of these groups. And that was a bad example. Let's see if we can find one here. So here you can see some archetypes have a gray sort of stops symbol icon here, and that means that that archetype is in a draft mode. Possibly it's just been uploaded. It could have been sitting there and doing nothing since 2009, but it hasn't been reviewed at all. Some archetypes have a blue a review icon, which means that it's currently under review. Some of them have, here is a stop sign but a different background color. That means that it has been published before, but it's been a new version has been uploaded, and it has to be taken back to new review before the new version that has been uploaded can be published again. And finally, these ones, the green ones with the tick, those have been published, have gone through review, and there hasn't been any new requirements that have come up since the publication. This tool also gives us the opportunity to cooperate over huge distances. We cooperate daily between Norway and Australia, and I think going around the globe, Australia is almost as far away from Norway as you can get. I think only New Zealand is further away. So it's a very good tool for collaborating over large distances without having to go on flights all the time. And it also lets us get review participants, experts from all over the place, to collaborate on the same models. This library also have a full revision history of all the archetypes and templates that you upload there, and I'll show you that in a minute. Specific projects can get their own incubators on the clinical knowledge manager. And that's, as Heather mentioned earlier, that's sort of like a sandpit where you can upload your early version archetypes and collaborate on them before they're ready for review. For archetypes that are further along in the process and you want to review them, you can upgrade your incubator into a project, which means that the archetypes that are in there can be taken for a review and be published. One example of a project is the medication family of archetypes, which were in the process. We've been working for them for quite a while, and we've just decided that they're ready for a review. So these will probably be sent for their first review in a few weeks from now. And they have their own project in here, so it's easy to find all the different archetypes that belong together. If we open a specific archetype, we can search for one here using the Find Resources tab here. So if I, for instance, search for blood pressure, I get a few ones. I get the blood pressure archetypes, the vital signs section, the modify early warning score, which also uses blood pressure, and a few others. I can open the blood pressure archetype from here and have a look at the archetype in a more tabular way. These are the metadata for the blood pressure archetype. The name of the archetype, a description of the concept that this archetype it covers, and if you remember, Heather mentioned that an archetype is a collection of data element for one clinical concept, which means that all the data elements that you would want to record about blood pressure, or more specifically, arterial blood pressure, that is an expression of the central blood pressure and not the specific blood pressure, for instance, in the ankle or the arm. Other blood pressures could be venous blood pressure, for instance, or the pulmonary artery blood pressures, which would be other archetypes than this one. There are some keywords that you can use for searching. So if we were to search for instance, for pulse pressure or measurement in the Find Resources tab, we will also find the blood pressure archetype. Then you have the purpose of the archetype. And this is the use is a description of how to use this particular archetype, and then you have misuse, how it's not to be used. For instance, not to be used for intravenous pressure. And at the bottom we have some references that have been used in creating this archetype. As you can see, we have several more tabs here. If you click the next one, we get some more technical information. This is the technical name of the archetype at the top here. So it's called observation, which is the class of the archetype, and blood pressure, and V1 means it's version 1 and it's published. Further down you can see who made the original version of this archetype and who has contributed in the reviews. So everyone who contributes in the review will get their name listed in the archetype here, and as you can see, that's quite a lot of people. And
2 Swedes at least.
At least 2 Swedes. Quite a few Norwegians. And here are the translations. Each translation will have the translator listed here also. And then there's the licensing at the bottom, and most well, all archetypes on this Clinical Knowledge Manager and the Norwegian Clinical Knowledge Manager are released under the Creative Commons Attribution Share-alike license, which means that everyone can use them freely as long as they keep this information in it about who's participated, and also release, if they make any changes to it, and then re-release it as an archetype. For instance, put it up on their website, the archetype file. They have to keep the same license so that other people can download that version and so on. But they can still use them in proprietary commercial software. Some people are worried about that, but that's not, the license does not prohibit people from using it that way. Going on, the data tab has the actual data elements for this archetype. For blood pressure, the systolic, diastolic, mean arterial pressure, pulse pressure, and a comment. And as you can see here, it also has bindings to SNOMED codes. Oops, that wasn't there. So the systolic blood pressure in this archetype equals the SNOMED CT code with this number, and it's called on examination systolic BP reading finding in brackets. There's also a description for every element, what it is, how it's to be used, and since this is a quantity or a number element, it has a property, which is pressure, and it has units. This one has one unit, which is millimeters of mercury. And it specifies it can be between 0 and 1,000 millimeters of mercury. And 1,000 sounds a lot if you're measuring blood pressure. But if you ask a clinician, what's the limit? What's the upper limit for blood pressure? Anyone? You can't define it, so we just put it can't be 4 digits. It has to be 999 or less, down to 0. You can't have a negative pressure. And you're usually not interested in, or you're never interested in decimals for blood pressure, so you can only have a whole number. And it's the same for these other ones as well. Going on, the state tab. The state for an observation archetype is the state the patient was in when the measurement was done. So the position of the patient, was the patient standing, sitting, reclining, lying, etc.? Did anything happen at the time of the measurement that would invalidate or make the measurement less accurate? For instance, if this was the child, did they run around the room while you were trying to measure blood pressure? The exertion slot allows you to put in another archetype that specifies did the patient run on a treadmill, for instance, at the time of the measurement, so you can do exertion testing. Sleep status and also tilt. And this one is, the tilt element is used mostly by cardiologists for tilt testing. But it's still a part of the maximal data set of the archetype, so that it can be used for those particular use cases. The protocol is about how you measured the blood pressure, cuff size, the location of the measurement, which can be coded, for instance here, right arm, left arm, etc. And the measurement method, auscultation, palpation, invasive, etc. And there are some other very specific ones here as well. At the end, you have a tab for the reference model, and Heather mentioned the reference model as something clinicians really never get into. But you have to know one thing about the reference model if you're modeling archetype, and that's some elements are already there in the archetype. You don't need to model them, such as the time when this measurement was done. You don't model that. The duration. Where did this information come from? Did the patient, for instance, come into the GP's office and tell the GP their weight, or did the GP measure it themselves? So that's the information provider. Who's the patient, the subject? Who participated in this measurement, etc. Those things are always in the archetype, and you don't have to model them explicitly. And each archetype has this reference model tab to show which things are there apart from the things that are modeled explicitly here. You can also show the archetype as a mind map, like this. There's actually a bug in the FreeMind, or the Mindmap software that's used in the Clinical Knowledge Manager at the moment, that makes these headings here black, but then they're not supposed to be black, but I'm sure that'll be fixed soon. And this is a way that clinicians usually like looking at archetypes much better than the tabular view. You can also get all the information that's in the tabular view in this view as well by mouse overing on these yellow bits here. And then you have a few other ways of looking at the archetypes in the Clinical Knowledge Manager. This is the computer language version of the archetype. So you can see that, and there's an XML, and you can download the archetype. We usually download it in the form that's called ADL, and that was the computer-readable one that I just saw. That's what the archetype editor and the template designer needs to work. Then here you find the the revision history of the archetype. And this, if we go all the way to the left here, the initial upload of this archetype was in July 2008. And it's gone through a lot of different revisions. Here you can see this was the original version here. And it's been branched out, and there's been some changes done to it. And then those changes have been made into a new version here, the second revision. And then that has happened a lot of times until the 33rd revision that was put out on October 9th this year. And all of this history is in the Clinical Knowledge Manager. And as you can see here, someone has branched the archetype again, and they're translating it to Turkish. And when they're finished, which, yeah, it's hard to tell if they're finished or not. I can't see it here, but I can see it in another part of the program. They'll send it to the editor, and the editor can make a new main revision. Here you can also change the language that you view the archetype in. So we're viewing it in English right now. We can see the Dutch version, for instance. Yeah, I can't read that. There's no Swedish version, I think, no. But it's a Farsi and several others. So it's very easy to view the archetype in other languages. There's also a possibility of uploading background data in all forms with the archetype. So if you have any design documentation, for instance, you can upload it here. So that was what you can see here in the archetype when you're not logged in. You can also download all of the archetypes in the Clinical Knowledge Manager by going to the Archetype menu here and bulk export. This is what we'll do to get archetypes for our template modeling tomorrow. Now I'm going to log in, and of course everyone can make their own user profile in this tool by signing up here. You have to write in your first name, your last name, your email, etc. And then you'll get an email with a confirmation information, and then you're good to go. And you have to do that to participate in reviews. How am I going with time?
We started a bit late, so I think we'll switch around and take Ron fairly soon. So
Okay.
wrap it up and.
Sure. I can do that. I just want to show you the reviews. If you participate in a review of an archetype, you will get an email saying, would you like to participate in this review? And you can choose no, I would not like to participate in this review. No, I would never like to participate in the review of this archetype. Or you can choose yes, at once, I want to do it right now. Or you can say yes, I want to do it, but a bit later. If you press yes, I want to do it right now, you'll get to a UI that looks a bit like this. You get every element from the archetype shown like this. And you get a comment field here where you can write whatever you like. We like people to not write anything if they agree with what's here. So don't write okay or yes, I like this for everything. That'll make that more work for you and more work for us afterwards. If you disagree with something or if you think something should change, then write something. And then at the end you press, you have to choose an overall recommendation. I would like to approve this archetype, I would like to get some minor revisions done, major revisions. You can also abstain from making a recommendation, or you can say this archetype is bogus, it should be rejected. And then you have to submit the entire thing. Is there anything else I should show before I wrap it up? Okay, so that's the main thing. Questions?
Yes.
So now anybody in here, especially clinicians, could go and adopt a couple of archetypes that are within the...
That's one thing I should show.
That.
Yes. And I've already done it, so I'll unadopt it. Okay, so if you're logged in and you open an archetype, you'll find this symbol here in the upper right corner. Adopt an archetype, and it's got a nice little heart. So if you press that, it will be recorded in the Clinical Knowledge Manager that you've adopted this archetype, and that means that every time there's a change in this archetype, you will get notified. You can actually specify that you don't want the notifications, but in any case, you will always get an invitation to any reviews of this archetype. So if you're specifically interested in blood pressure or body weight or whatever, and you find an archetype for it and you're interested in participating, adopt the archetype. That's it.